Hare Krishna devotees, welcome to Shloka a Day. Today's Shloka is Shloka number 15 of chapter 8. Mamupetya punarjanma
Mamupetya punarjanma
Dukkhalayam ashashvatam
Dukkhalayam ashashvatam
Napnuvanti mahatmanaha
Napnuvanti mahatmanah
Samsiddhim paramam gataha.
Samsiddhim paramam gataha.
Word for word meaning and translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Mam, me. Upetya, achieving. Punaha,
Punaha,
again.
Janma,
birth. Dukkha alayam,
Dukkha alayam,
place of miseries. Ashashvatam,
temporary,
na, never. Apnuvanti, attain. Mahatmanaha, the great souls. Samsiddhim, perfection. Paramam, ultimate. Gataha, having achieved. Translation. After attaining me, the great souls who are yogis in devotion never return to this temporary world, which is full of miseries, because they have attained the highest perfection. Yes.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So here we are finishing the 2 shloka section of Shuddha Bhakti. So the Lord is saying that those devotees who are absorbed in devotion, once they return to the spiritual world, they will never come back to the material world ever again. That's a guarantee. After attaining me, the Lord says they never return to this temporary world. Why? Because they have attained the highest perfection. So essentially, Krishna is concluding by saying that Bhakti Yoga is the actual only means, the only therapy for us, the only cure for us if we want to be eternally with Him. This is a very, very famous shloka, very often cited by Srila Prabhupada, that this temporary material world is full of the miseries of birth, old age, disease, and death. Prabhupada writes, naturally, he who achieves the highest perfection and attains the supreme planet Krishna Loka, Goloka Vrindavan, does not wish to return. The supreme planet is described in Vedic literature as Avyakta, Akshara, and Paramagati. In other words, that planet is beyond our material vision and it is inexplicable. Inexplicable means you really cannot explain in words. But it is the highest goal, the destination for the Mahatmas, the great souls. The Mahatmas receive transcendental messages from the realized devotees and thus gradually develop devotional service in Krishna consciousness and become so absorbed in transcendental service that they no longer desire elevation to any of the material planets, nor do they even want to be transferred to any spiritual planet. They only want Krishna and Krishna's association and nothing else. That is the highest perfection of life. This verse specifically mentions the personalist devotees of the Supreme Lord, Krishna. These devotees in Krishna consciousness achieve the highest perfection of life. In other words, they are the supreme souls. Going a little bit deeper into the shloka. So this also sets the stage for the next section, which is shlokas 16 to 22, where the Lord is going to contrast the material world with the spiritual world. Here, the Lord has introduced that there is something else compared to the material world. The material world is dukkhalayam ashashvatam. But once you go to the spiritual world, nobody wants to come back to the material world. There must be a reason for that. And the reason is that it is the exact opposite of the material world. So the actual happily ever after that you see in the movies doesn't exist in the material world at all. It's only in the spiritual world. And Krishna is using the words dukkhalayam ashashvatam as a matter of fact, in the sense that there is no dispute about this. There's no need to have a debate. There's no need to have an argument that this place is a place of misery and impermanence. From the time we take birth to the time that we grow up, through our teenage years, through married life, through old age, all of us have experienced difficulties. Something or other, physical difficulties, emotional challenges, all kinds of difficulties we experience. So nobody can ever argue with you that this place is a good place for you to stay back at. So if the doctor tells you that this is your disease and here is your treatment, and if you stick to the treatment, you can go home, you don't have to be in the hospital anymore. No patient will say, no, I want to stay in the hospital. I like it. So the patient is not going to argue with the doctor, because everybody knows that the hospital is a miserable place. It's a place that you go for treatment. Similarly, if we are in jail and the jailer tells you with good behavior you can be freed, then there's no question that you want to get out of that jail based on that promise that the jailer has made you, that if your conduct is good, you can get parole. So similarly, nobody needs to argue that the material world is a miserable place, that it's a place for punishment. It's a place of pain and suffering. So if a self-realized soul is coming and telling you, here is the process to get out of this material world, why would you want to stay here? So if you've not understood that this material world is a miserable place to live, then Lord Krishna says, you're not very intelligent. So pain and suffering is a part of life. What do they signal to you? They signal to you that something is not right and it needs to be corrected. So similarly, the pain and miseries that we experience in the material world are a reminder for us that our consciousness is contaminated and we need to cure that contamination. We need to rid our consciousness of that contamination. But if we worship Sri Krishna, then we do not have to come back to the material world. So what is the cure? The cure is Bhakti Yoga, to rid yourself of the contamination. So the Mahatmas are those who understand Sri Krishna to be the ultimate reality and nothing else. So now when we talk about the Paramam Gataha, what is that Paramam Gataha? Krishna will elaborate on this specifically, this Paramam Gataha, this spiritual abode, from shlokas 20, 21 and 22, and then later on in chapter 15 again, when we come to that section of the upside down banyan tree. So some souls are inspired and motivated to seek the ultimate goal back home to Godhead. How are you inspired? When you realize this is just a useless place. It's just like a cycle that you follow over and over again, and nothing ever changes. So a few souls are inspired to break this cycle once and for all, and they seek with determination that ultimate goal. They want to go back home to Krishna. Therefore, for devotees, keep in mind this entire chapter is really about death, right? So for devotees, death is not a scary destruction. It is actually a happy discharge. You're being discharged from this hospital. Go ahead. You are cured. You don't need to come back here anymore. So death need not be a frightful proposition for us. For devotees, death is not a frightful proposition. Death is actually welcome because it just may mean that you're cured and you don't have to stay here anymore. Hence, the Lord is simply assuming that you already know that this place is a place of misery and suffering. The Lord is assuming that you don't want to stay here. The Lord is assuming that you want to attain Him. But then the Lord is also saying that it's the great souls who want to attain Him. But then there is no discrimination. Anybody can practice Krishna consciousness and go back to Krishna. Not in a future lifetime. That can happen in this lifetime.
If you like our videos, please subscribe to our channel and turn on the bell notification. If you'd like to join our classes every day, please check the details in the description section of this video. We look forward to serving you.